Big data is about to change how baseball at the MLB level is managed, analyzed, and consumed. This was a quote 3 years ago from R.J. Anderson, a writer for CBS Sports. He was talking about how emerging technologies for MLB teams will be changing, how split second decisions will be made by managers and teams in the league. StatCast technology can be used by commentators to make the game more interesting for fans that are watching at home. It is the commentator's job to analyze sabermetrical stats and rely on information to make it understandable to a viewer that's watching. This approach could make the game of baseball much more understandable for fans and interesting for those who were not at one point a fan of baseball. The reason I care so much about this topic is that I have been a baseball player my entire life, and I've always thought of the game as more complex than what meets the eye when you were watching as a random viewer. This is just another way to break down the game into details and also realize just how complex and how talented these players are at the major league level. StatCast is an excellent tool that can be used to change the game of baseball for both fans and coaches. Coaches are using it to help their team wins and help fans benefit from the tool to learn about their favorite players in a different way. StatCast is using specific cameras to have access to higher resolution cameras in order to capture the movement of players. As you see from the visual aid, the second slide shows a good example of what a StatCast technology would look like while you're watching a game. Many times the commentators will reference these StatCast cameras and visuals several times throughout the games, and they're oftentimes sponsored by a company, just as in this one, it's sponsored by Amazon Web Services. The president of business and media for the MLB, a man by the name of Bob Bowman, believes that this is the single biggest advancement in instant technology in 50 years for baseball. This technology gives detail as to why it is that a player was able to catch a ball, reach a certain speed, or hit a certain ball with enough impact physically to leave the ballpark. This has made it easier to transition into how players are valued the way they are and why we see such large contracts in terms of money for these players when they're being signed to specific franchises in the MLB. This technology has critically changed even how players are traded from team to team. All players are tracked in every aspect of their game once they reach the MLB level, so managers and inside front office executives are able to see just how much of a prospect they are for another team that's maybe looking to make a playoff run or to have a long-term contract and kind of build the team around. As you can see in slide 3, several of these StatCast statistics are being used, some by big market franchises and others by small market teams that are trying to use these details to their benefit and to build their franchise to an even bigger level. There are several players that have been overlooked as prospects before this technology was around. One example of a player that became notable through these advancements was a prospect named Collin McHugh. StatCast technology helped show how his curveball had a certain spin rate when he threw it that was much more difficult to hit than his other pitches. And when the Houston Astros got hold of this information, they used it and told him as a prospect they'd like him to throw that pitch at a higher percentage, and it has made him into a star player, regardless of having to improve at all. Just using his similar ability that he had at the time and throwing that pitch more has made him a lot better. These are the types of things that would not have been around at all 10 years ago. Statistics can help the viewer as much as they can help any major league team in learning about the details behind professional baseball. Valuing prospects in the MLB is one thing, but the data needs to be interpreted in a context so that any viewer is able to establish their own opinion based on, for the sake of fans in baseball. This is where it is essential for MLB commentators to help viewers understand why analyzing this data is very important in determining how a certain player can make an impact on the game. Not only should commentators be able to translate it, but they should be able to help bridge the idea between why certain statistics are valued so high and why other statistics are valued lower in baseball now compared to in the past. One example of a statistic that has become huge in determining contracts for big-time impact players is called wins above replacement. As you can see, there's a definition of it in slide 4. It's basically a sum of a player's total contribution to his team in terms of how many games the team won because he was in the game rather than a regular replacement player, which would be someone that is average and fairly easy to get in terms of their value in regard to money. If this star player is playing, a WAR of 8 would mean that the team won 8 more games with him playing than they would have if an average player was playing. So this brings up a really crucial detail. Mike Trout just signed the biggest contract in sports history, and as you see in slide 5, his wins above replacement was compared to generational type hitters such as Ty Cobb, Ted Williams, Alex Rodriguez, and Mel Ott, and his wins above replacement in his career came out to the highest through the age of 22. So that's just why he was valued so high. Every year the game of baseball is changing due to advancements in technology. The importance of understanding how technology works is something that shows how athletes are valued and how viewers can benefit through the process. If you have any spare time this year, take a few minutes if you're a baseball fan and sit down to watch a game. You'll notice how much technology has been incorporated each pitch that's thrown, and especially when you're listening to a commentator speak, how they approach doing their job during the game has become much different. An MLB analyst hired specifically to work on StatCast said it best. My dad is a smart guy, a baseball fan, but not super into all of the crazy numbers. How can I write StatCast statistics for fans such as him? And the answer is to be able to translate these statistics has become something that changes the game of baseball and could change its popularity in the future and for many years to come. So my question for you is, do you think that this is something that helps promote or deter fans from a sport that has already been considered boring? Thank you.